Amigos, welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show, December 11th. We have a great show for you guys. Let's go ahead and just get started. How's it going? My name is Weasel from Footmex Nation. This is an hour-long podcast dedicated to all things Mexican football. We like to call this Monday Night Football. Here it is. And we're starting off with our usual question, talking to the guys saying hello while they answer it, which is, obviously it's both, but was the Liga MX final more won by Tigres or more lost by Rayados? And we'll start with Mr. Tom Marshall, who was there and now back in Guadalajara. ¿Cómo estás, Tom?
Bien, gracias, Wiso. Yeah, obviously both, innit? And the question is the answer. But no, probably, I mean, the way Monterrey missed the penalty, I think that, it was in their hands to take that to extra time, and they would have been given such a boost, heading into that last 30 minutes. But I think overall, I mean, you look at Monterrey's home form this season, and for me, they went into that final, the second leg, absolute the favourite. I mean, obviously, in the back of your mind, the weaponry, the arsenal that Tigres have got, that they can do damage at any moment. But it was Monterrey's to win. Daniel Mohamed said after the first leg, he said, if you'd have said to me in June, give me one home game against Tigres to win the title, I'd have snapped your hand off. I would have taken it straight away. You can't ask for more than a home game. So I thought Monterrey, obviously a bright start, but I thought Tigres, especially in the first half, they wrestled the game away from Monterrey, and at the end of the day, that's where they lost it, because Monterrey were actually quite good in the second half, but they lost that game by probably sitting back a little bit too much in that first half and allowing Tigres to overwhelm them basically and score those two goals.
Interesting to see. Jason, we'll go with you. Lost by, Tom brings a good point with the penalty, but give credit to guys.
Yeah, I'm normally inclined to go with the negative here, but I think I'd probably put it more on one by Tigres. I totally agree that everything was set up for Monterrey, but I think, especially in that second leg, a lot of the result had to do with how Tigres played, obviously. But I give it a little more to them in the way they shut down Monterrey. For the most part, Monterrey had their chances, but I'd have to say Tigres really impressed me in that second leg, and I'd give it a little more D40 kind of thing.
Mr. Cesar, Tijuana area, you had Rayados.
I did.
Convincingly winning 2-1.
I thought they were going to win 3-1 actually.
3-1.
I was way off. Father, congratulations to you. So I was really hoping I was going to win there with the bet. I was keeping my fingers crossed. I knew I had to shoot for because I knew you were going to do like something like a 1-0 or like a 2-1 win. So I had to shoot for the moon of 3-1. But
yes, for some of you who don't know,
congratulations.
I won my the Liguilla Madness. Jason has been dethroned for winning I think last year's and sometime now. So I was just on a roll. I don't think I missed a single game. I did. I was out celebrating. Big celebration. I actually flew to Monterrey and was with the Tigres fans. I felt like it was my championship too. Rob Schneider was there saying, "Good job, Tigres, and good job, Weasel."
Me and Rob celebrated all night.
Me and Rob, and that's why I didn't do the hair today. I just put a hat on. It's been
crazy.
But
I guess I should actually answer the question, but
I don't mind.
Yeah, it was lost by Rayados. I mean, they scored the first goal in both games. Aviles had the chance there at the end to equalize, and I think if it went into extra time, I still had a little bit more faith in Rayados. And then I don't want to put all of the blame on Hugo Gonzalez, but I think if he would have had a better first half, we would be having an entirely different conversation. So I'm not going to put too much of the blame on him, but I do think that he had a role there. And I think he might have been a little unlucky, maybe with that first goal. It had a little bit of weird bounce, but I don't know. It just wasn't what you were expecting.
I think could have done more. I think that's been talked a lot about in Mexico. We tweeted out this question a couple hours ago. Jason, what are some responses?
We had a few good ones on Twitter. Response to the question. Nate Abarrera says, a friend of the show, by the way, says, unfortunately, it was more lost by Rayados. Gonzalez should have done better on both goals, and the penalty from Aviles was as poetic as it was saddening, as the title hopes went flying up and away. Yeah, Golazo del Gringo, Junior Pinsky says is lost by Rayados. They had everything going for them and just couldn't get the job done. While Alex Dusa says that it was more won by Tigres and that kept Rayados from creating enough quality chances to get back in the game, other than that terrible penalty take that we have mentioned earlier.
God,
So,
that
yeah.
was a bad penalty, man. Can we can we just talk about how awful that was? That was, I mean, I was
Pretty
expecting
Well,
so much more from Aviles.
I think we will have to talk about how awful that was. And that brings us to our agenda for today for all of you guys that are watching. We got a few people, not that many people on the chat right now. So if you're listening to us, get on and let us hear your thoughts. We'll talk, obviously, Tigres champion, all about Tuca and the Tigres legacy. Now, Tuca is just, almost tying with the... Definitely... Yeah. Well, just kind of, I was saying just the legacy that Tuca now has. I mean, if you can think of top coaches now in Liga MX, and we'll talk a little about that. Monterrey now, are they the new Cruz Azul? Another final lost?
Whoa.
Right.
Ooh.
It's this. I think they have the same finals loss, right? They tied Cruz Azul on the same finals loss. And now in the Torneos Cortos, we'll venture into the Champions League that everyone's been talking about. Very exciting news there with Porto and also Roma and all the other matches. Club World Cup happened over the weekend where Pachuca got into in the second round in a very, very interesting game. And we're also going to have a special guest of the show, one of our Patreon, Mr. Eduardo Dueñas. He's going to come on. He's a fan of the show, and he was picked because of he joined our Patreon page, and we picked a random fan to join us on the show. So there's your chance if you ever wanted to be on the show. We have some goals there. Check out our Patreon page. Amazing podcast that's happening. We'll talk a little bit about that. And Tom and Cesar will give us a preview, but it's going to be very, very fun. We have lots and lots to talk about. Mr. Naib had the night off after his partying from, I guess, people keep saying that the only people that care about this championship are is Monterrey. I mean, even memes like Monterrey thinks this is like the big world party and everyone's watching it, and everyone outside of the Regios is like, yeah. Is that true, Tom? And I'm just really quick before we get into that. You're in Guadalajara. You saw a different atmosphere because you were there. You went to the training. The whole city is part. But outside of the city, they get, Monterrey fans feel like everyone's watching and it's this huge deal. They kind of make fun of them because people kind of don't care. That's what I've seen in the United States.
It's a rivalry. It's a rivalry between the provinces and the capital, basically. I think, and it's throughout Mexican history, there's been this divide, and I think you can see it in this rivalry. I think people from Mexico City don't want to admit how good the Clásico Regio is, and I think people up there in Monterrey, Nuevo León, have a bit of chip on the shoulder about matching the capital. So it's both sides. The people down in Mexico City don't really want to admit it, and then people up there in Monterrey are so desperate for recognition, and it creates this weird kind of tension between the two. I mean, that's how I read it. But from an independent kind of neutral point of view, for me, whenever I go to Monterrey and watch games and speak to people and take in the football culture in that city, for me it's like a different country. I've lived here 9 years in Guadalajara, and you don't see what you see in Monterrey very often in Guadalajara. The intensity is incredible of that rivalry, and for me, we'll talk about it further. But I mean, it compares with. I mean, Gignac said after the game, he said this compares. There can't be too many cities out there that live this kind of rivalry with such intensity. Mm-hmm. And I think the big positive yesterday was that. There was no reports of real violence and stuff, and the Monterrey fans actually started clapping Tigres, and the Tigres fans clapped the crowd. And I mean, obviously it's a massive rivalry, but to see that was, I know it's a cliche and a bit, but I mean, I thought everybody won in a way. You know what I mean? It was a great finale to the Apertura season.
Yeah, you definitely saw some videos surfacing out there of some Tigres fans consoling Rayados fans. They're all crying and, Monterrey won. Don't worry about this, and you'll have next year. It was good to see.
Easy for them to say. That.
It was
title.
Yeah, it was good to see. And yeah, I think you tweeted out a video or a picture, Tom, of the Monterrey fans staying there and applauding the team. So I think if I had to pick a Clásico to be at, I've been to the Clásico Nacional, but I have to experience that, the Clásico Regio, and it's definitely there. So let's go ahead and jump in and saying hello to now we got a little more of people on the chat. Eduardo Morales, Christopher Serafin, Huevo Duro 702 is there. Jesus Flores, El Toro, El Rayado is there. So yeah, give us your questions. A lot of people are saying Rayados lost. Huevo Duro said he missed the game because of work. So you can watch it. I think UDN has got those review on 90, like 30 minutes. You can watch the whole game without any it's just nonstop. So it's pretty fun. All right, let's jump in. Tuca. Let's talk about the coach. Let's talk about how he's just writing. A lot of people just kind of seeing what he has done there in Tigres. But as far as Tigres, people saying that, this is the team of the decade at least. Tigres take the title for the 4th time under Tuca and the 3rd time in the last 5 seasons. So dominance, consistency, the players, the money, la afición. Right now, Tigres is at the height, the pinnacle of what a club should be in the future of Liga MX, and it's looking good. So let's talk, guys, on this dominance right now. We've seen the Toluca in the last decade. You saw some Cruz Azul in the 80s and, America and all that, but it's coming to be that Tigres is dominating, especially how many finals. So I want to hear all about everything that's working for this team, and here are the results.
I mean, obviously, money helps, and a lot of money has been put into this project. So, that's something to bring up. But I think, in a way, this is Tigres just being rewarded once again for sticking with Tuca, for believing in that Tuca project. He's been there since 2010. That's incredible in Liga MX standards. I think that's very, very incredible. And even though they've spent a lot of money on those players, it has been. You got to give Tuca credit again, because he was. I mean, you could see that in the first half of the season, he was trying to figure out a way how to make space for all those attacking players. And he even tried, I think the first, I don't know how often he tried it, because I didn't watch all the Tigres games, but it was almost like he went with like a 3-4-1-2 formation. I mean, he really had to experiment and had to try to make these changes to make space for these players. So, it was a daunting task, and you got to give credit for him. You got to give credit for him for doing this and for getting his, for another title for Tigres.
Yeah, I think the other point is the team spirit, that Tigres have got, because it's not easy to manage. There's a lot of egos in that team. There's a lot of players, getting big money that are on the bench that, that want to get in certain national teams, that Tuca has to say, no, you're on the bench today. And I think the way Tuca's managed that, and you can see even if you look at the social media and the way the subs reacted to winning the title, to what was going on in the game, I think he's created a really, really strong unit. I mean, there's very few young players in this squad as well. So I think that helps. There's a lot of mature players. I don't think there's anybody. I mean, I don't know. Don't want to go into the negative stuff, but, there's only one player from the youth system. I think Aquino was the youngest player that started for Tigres, and he's 27. So it gives you an idea. It's just a very mature squad led by a very experienced coach with a lot of money put into it. In a certain way, it's not rocket science building a team like this, But I think the real key, aside from the tactical issues that Cesar was saying, is actually the kind of human issue and bonding that group together and making sure they're all kind of moving in the same direction.
And there's something to be said for the fact that obviously you have this manager with this consistency, and the players know he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. He's going to be there. So whatever, they have to work it out with the manager. All of those players that want that playing time, it's not like they can cause unrest and force another manager in there. He's going to be there. So that consistency makes all the difference.
He hasn't made. I mean, the guy's got everything he wants. He's driving around with a Ferrari. I've seen his car. I mean, he's the king in Monterrey. We've seen those videos. He has his players. He's getting the players that he wants, the system that he wants. But
the one factor to add to that, the one factor that he's got, and that very few managers get to accomplish, especially these days, is that he's got a dynasty. We're seeing now this is the team of the decade. He's writing history. He's only now, was it one title away from Ignacio Treyes as the most, as the manager with most titles in the history of the Mexican First Division. Now, Tuca's contract goes to 2020, And if Tigres continue like this, he's going to do it. He's going to be the most successful manager of all time in the Mexico First Division. So I think, yeah, everything that you said there, exactly right. The conditions on the ground are there. But the other ingredient to all this is that he can make history. He can retire in 3 years' time as the best ever manager that this domestic First Division has ever seen, potentially.
Hey, it's great. I mean, Tuca has been in Liga MX since I can remember. Since there hasn't been a time where this coach came in from who was a player, Pumas, and the legacy that he brought in, and I think his son's even working in Tigres, or his family. Yeah, I think his family said I read there that it's part of that institution. You've seen that they've tempted him with the El Tri, and he said no. He came in, he helped. He said thank you. And what's next for Tuca? It's kind of almost that Alex Ferguson, right? It's kind of that English manager that could be there for 20, 30 years and build that club and be the most winnable coach in Liga MX. And I think that's positive to see that in that club. And maybe Mohamed would stay there, and continue to that on that side. And maybe those teams in El DF could take notice that, swapping out a manager after 2-3 years. Yeah. But also, Tigres got, at the same time, he is getting what the respect of the club and the back of the club.
Yeah, Tom. Another thing I want to bring up is that Tom talked about the squad. And just how you could see that celebration at the end. Especially when they were giving Damian Alvarez, like they gave him the title and he was like lifting up, which was pretty cool to see. But I think another thing that stood out to me, and I mentioned this on Twitter, was that Gignac didn't have a good season. I think you see a lot of stuff on Twitter, just like cartoons. You see images of people talking about Gignac and just oh, Tigres winning another title. Thanks, Gignac. But Gignac didn't do well, and they had to have Valencia and Vargas step up, and I think that's a testament to the team as well, because I think in the past maybe some people have said that maybe they're a little reliant on Gignac. Of course, in the last 2 runs of playoffs, he scored 6 goals in each of those playoff runs, and that's not what happened this time around. Other players needed to step up, and they did, and they compensated for the fact that Gignac was pretty, honestly, average this season during the playoffs. So I think that's another thing to bring up about this squad that is that was able to get that defeat over Monterrey.
Let's talk about Monterrey. Another loss in the final in the Torneos Cortos. I think tying Cruz Azul, although it doesn't have that bad luck. But I was almost very kind of disappointed in Mohamed in that sense. Let's talk about what we all thought, the caliber of the team, the way it's been playing, especially throughout the Liguilla, commanding first spot in Liga MX throughout the year. Come to the final. Were you guys disappointed in that Rayados with a player that has been playing an amazing tournament and losing it like that in the PK, and just kind of how everything unfolded? Minute 2? How many of you guys just kind of had it already done? In a home crowd, an amazing stadium.
So one, I was like, boom, I know. I'm getting the championship here, man. It's all fine now.
1-0. Boom, they're up. This is the best team in Liga MX, and in minute 2. Talk about Rayados, guys.
I think Rayados, I don't know, this game wasn't, it was, as soon as we knew these 2 teams were going to be in the final, there was very little different, they were very hard to split. I think Monterrey were favourites slightly going into the second leg just because of the home record was amazing. They're doing it in front of the fans, and, it gave them an advantage. And obviously they got a 1-1 in Estadio Universitario, so that it was advantage Monterrey. But I wouldn't put any blame on, kind of the pressure getting to them being them losing the cool. I thought they played actually pretty well in the second half. I thought they dominated Tigres. We very rarely see Tigres being dominated like that. Monterrey created the chances. They got the penalty. They got the big opportunity that they wanted. And Hurtado, who's for me has been the best Liga MX player of 2017, missed it. You're going to blame Hurtado after what he's done. He guided Tijuana to the regular season first place, and then he transferred to Monterrey, and they finished top as well, and they absolutely destroyed everybody in the playoffs. And I don't know, I just think these 2 teams are quite evenly matched. I think that if there's a difference between these two, it's on the bench, because I think Tigres, they've got the luxury of bringing on, a Jurgen Damm, a Sosa. They've got the luxury of, Hugo Ayala is suspended, and they bring in Francisco Meza, who's on the fringe of the Colombian national team. This is a guy who, if he can get minutes next season, could go to the World Cup with Colombia. So the strength and depth of Tigres is unbelievable, and I think that kind of shone through a little bit as well.
I think it was clear that Aviles wasn't 100% though. I mean, I think it was clear that he was still trying to deal with some injury problems. And honestly, I think that if Aviles was at 100%, I mean, it's so easy to say this after everything has happened, but I think Rayados would be the champions. And I feel confident saying that just because of how important he has been to the team. And just something was clearly off about him in this game. He missed time passes. He didn't exactly look as dangerous as he used to. He just looked a little off. And I think he has such a key role for the team that I do believe that if he was at 100%, I mean, if he was at 100%, he could have potentially scored that penalty as well and at least taken it to extra time. But I do believe that they would have won the title if he was 100% healthy.
Yeah, the thing that really sticks out to me is that you had the issues with Hugo. Those goals that were conceded weren't the best, and Tigres, the players that stepped up with Valencia are just excelling over really the whole Liga. But the thing that really sticks out is that Tigres really only scored 3 goals over these 2 matches.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't think ahead of time that would be enough.
Yeah.
I mean, despite whatever Monterrey did in the back, you would think they would get at least 3 goals over these 2 matches. And it is like some of those chances that weren't taken, obviously the penalty miss. But for as much as they did take over in that second half, there weren't the wealth of quality chances that you'd expect. And I think you have to come back and credit that Tigres defense that really did limit the amount of quality chances that Monterrey were able to get in front of goal.
And I think if you want to put some blame onto Mohamed, obviously Lionel Vangione was suspended for the second leg after his red card in the first. But if you want to, if you wanted to criticize Mohamed, perhaps what you could say is that using Basanta at left back kind of allowed, and obviously Monterrey opened the score in a very early second minute. But I think having Basanta centre back as the left back kind of invited Tigres on. Whereas if you've got someone like Luis Fuentes who was on the bench, he would have pushed forward a lot more, who did push forward a lot more when he came on in the second half. I think it forced Tigres to think again about Valencia being so far forward, if you know what I mean, about the front 3 being able to push up against the Monterrey defense. So yeah, I think Mohamed, if you're going to pick bone with him, then it'd be that. But I don't know. Like I said, there's so little difference between these 2 teams. I think Monterrey have to do exactly the same as Tigres have done with Tuca Ferretti after the lost finals. Stick with him, back him again, go back into the transfer market. Look, this stadium that they've got at Monterrey is not out of place in the Champions League over in Europe. It's an amazing stadium. They've got a very, very good squad. Almost up there with Tigres, very close to Tigres. It's so obvious to me that that Mohamed has to stay, and they keep plugging this idea. I mean, there's a major improvement from the Clausura to the Apertura with Edwin Cardona leaving and Aviles Hurtado coming in. They've got to do that again. They've got to keep reinforcing, bring in 1, 2 more players over the winter, and go again, because Monterrey were almost perfect this season. Let's not forget that. I mean, okay, Hurtado missed a penalty late on. But the way the regular season went, they were unbelievable. They were destroying everybody. The home form was unbelievable. They went through the Liga like the opposition team didn't exist. And it was only when they came up against Tigres in this big Clásico that really they slipped up. So for me, it's really clear that Monterrey are very much on the right path, and they have to stay on it rather than doing something which for me would be really crazy.
Yeah, I know we should be like celebrating Tigres more because they literally just won the title yesterday. But I do think that Rayados, I mean, going forward, I still have them, and we'll have to see what happens over with the draft. But I still have them as my title favorites, and I feel pretty confident saying that again. I do think that they are going to be the title favorites no matter what happens over the draft. And they also have, I mean, you talk about someone like but like, I mean, we have players like Jonathan Gonzalez and Cesar Montes. These are 2 young players who are still developing, who are crucial, figures for this team. They're only going to get better. So it's scary to think about how good the Rayados are going to continue to be. I mean, especially in the near future.
The
Well-
only thing about Rayados next season for me is that they've got this cup game on the 21st of December against Pachuca, and that's going to completely destroy the rest period and the preseason. And I think
But they're
every
still going
time
to make it into the top 8, though, right? We still think they're going to make it into top 8. That's
Yeah.
all that matters. Like, yeah.
But I
to
think we've
start
seen with
season-
Tigres as well. We've seen with Tigres, they've won the last 3 titles in December, and they've struggled slightly in the Clausura. And I honestly believe it's because of that. I think other teams have got they have at least 2-3 weeks off, and then they get back into this preseason. Whereas the teams that reach the final generally don't, and Monterrey even less this time, because now they've got to somehow prepare, on the 21st, 10 days away, for a cup final, which is a bit unfortunate, really.
Yeah.
Speaking of kind of the Liga MX, Liguilla, and all that, obviously Tigres. Not that many goals, and I know that wasn't really on a rundown. I felt like there wasn't that many goals scored. Everything, I think. This is the only game that maybe the underdog, if we have to say underdog, won. Very straight out. The top 4 of the Liguilla came in, and then going not very many scored. Cesar, you said something earlier that kind of like, well, Aviles Hurtado would have been 100%. Let's say he scores that, Monterrey wins. The drawback to Tigres, they lost against Pachuca, in Club World Cup. And this is what kind of makes me mad, too, because I really wanted the Gignacs. I wanted that team to make it to the Club World Cup. But Gignac wasn't Mr. Liguilla as he normally is. Does this kind of save, at least, I'm not saying a lackluster performance at all, but if Tigres would have lost this, I think it would have been more trouble towards Tigres in that we saw. Kind of both were kind of heading off. But if the team that lost says Monterrey, I feel like they can keep going, they can rebuild. But I think if Tigres would have lost, would have been a lot more. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Damaging?
I think I assume that most people thought that Rayados were going to win the title. They won it because they were the underdogs. I don't really think it would have hurt them more than it currently hurts Rayados. I think actually it hurts Rayados more, to be personally honest, because I do think that Rayados were the favorites here. So I don't know. That's something.
In the money,
I think if Tigres would have lost it would have been an absolute disaster.
Yeah, and this is kind of how I see it.
Capped a disastrous year. Why? Because they lost against Chivas in the final. They lost against the Conca champions. And listen, if you up there in Monterrey, the Conca champions is really important.
Exactly.
This rivalry is based on winning trophies, and the Monterrey fans, what they constantly kind of talk about and bit of banter with the Tigres fans is that Tigres have never won an international title. Tigres are desperate to win that CONCACAF Champions League, and if
they lost Libertadores too.
Yep.
Yeah, they lost the Libertadores, and if Tigres would have lost against the arch rivals in this final, it would have capped. I mean, Tuca would have defended it by saying, we've got to the 3 finals. What more can we do? But it's not good enough. At the end of the day, when we talk about legacy and dynasty, like I mentioned before early in the show, it's about titles. And as unfair as that might seem, this is now historic. The final against Chivas, forget it. The Conca champions, forget it. They've beaten Monterrey. This is for that city. This game is I mean, it's the first ever final between these two teams. It can't be more important for fans of those two teams.
No, that's a good point.
It's important and that's how I was kind of when I was looking at the final. I'm like, hopefully Tigres wins. Hopefully, I want to see that Mexican club take that next step. And if this could be, I mean, I'm thinking of the Tolucas. I'm thinking of the Necaxa in the 90s. It's one of the best Liga MX teams we've seen in the history of Liga MX. Obviously recent, and that's what I want to see. In a competition we won't be able to see until next year, and hopefully everything could stay there. But gosh, if they would only be in that Club World Cup with this team right now. But
yeah, I mean,
would have.
Yeah, I mean, against Gremio, it's going to be. I think any Mexican team it'll be difficult. I mean, Gremio are a very, very good team as well, with a couple of players that have got massive futures, especially the Arthur guy. But yeah, I mean, I think the other question that this final posed, and now looking at this from a kind of bit of more of a cynical point of view, is that the lack of Mexicans, especially for Monterrey. And I'm not saying that teams should be forced to have Mexicans or anything like that, but the way the repercussions for the national team, the fact that Tigres basically don't give young players a chance, I mean, that's the bottom line. It's almost impossible with Tigres and Tuca Ferretti to get. If you're coming through the Tigres youth team, then you must. If you're in this under 17s and under 20s at Tigres, I mean, what's going through your head? You're basically thinking, hopefully Puebla or Lobos Buap or Veracruz coming. I mean, that could be your only realistic hope. And Monterrey, one Mexico-born player in the first leg of the final, 2 in the second, with Cesar Montes coming in. But it's if you look for the future of the national team, and if you could, because there's the argument, you could make the argument, and you could say, right, if Mexico had 18 teams like Tigres and Monterrey, just imagine. And I think it's a valid argument. It'd be absolutely amazing on a lot of levels. Yeah, but then exciting. If you look at the repercussions for the Mexican national team, I think then it's kind of a bit concerning.
But then we still got the 2011 rule. I mean, we'll see what kind of impact that makes next year once it comes into play.
Will Tuca coach the national team is a question that I keep getting.
No way.
No, never.
No, that would be way.
I'm saying 2020. I'm saying he rescues it. He rescues it from whoever takes it after Osorio, and he takes us to the World Cup glory in Qatar.
Not so much.
Interesting.
On that same point, I think it behooves the other teams in the league. I mean, it just makes sense. Like, I think it's up to other teams to catch up to these Monterrey squads, and I don't think that they necessarily have to match it in the same tactics. I think you can be a team that uses young players and brings up your players because it makes economic sense. You don't have to spend as much money to do that. And if you do it well enough, you can compete. We've seen Pachuca compete with these teams. We've seen Pachuca take the title recently. So it can be done, and I don't think there are enough teams doing it in Liga MX, and I think there are a lot of teams that are run very poorly. And I think some of those teams that don't have the resources, if they just did it a little more wisely, then we'd have more competition in this. We'd have more young Mexicans playing, but we don't have it right now. But for me, generally, like I don't like those kind of rules that enforce certain amounts of players to be played, because I think it's good to have a strong league. And I think that smart teams will find ways to find those inefficiencies. And Tigres and Monterrey are attacking this one way. If other teams come along and are smart about it, they won't necessarily go about it the exact same way, especially if they don't have the money behind it. But, I mean, you can attack it another way, and you can play those youth players, and it can be successful.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is, Tigres, we've got Golazo del Gringo on the chat mentioning, a few of the core players that are Mexican, like, Hugo Ayala, Dueñas, Jürgen Damm, Javier Aquino. Aquino's been in Europe, but, someone like Dueñas, for me, easily can play in Europe. Mm-hmm. He's a very good player. Yeah. He runs, he never stops running. He's hard, he's physically pretty intense. He's decent on the ball. He's not amazing, but he can work. He could go into La Liga without a problem. Jürgen Damm has historically had interest, but actually, we were chatting a little bit to Jesus Dueñas after the game, and we said to him, like, would you like to play in Europe? You've won so much here. Would you like to go and play in Europe? And he was like, yeah, it's my dream to play in Europe. I'd love to go in. Jürgen Damm said the same thing after the game yesterday. But then when clubs come in, Tigres have got more money than most European clubs, because Dueñas isn't going to go Real Madrid. Damm isn't going to go to Barcelona. So Tigres can just say, right, well, we're rejecting that bid, and we'll give you a new contract, and here you go. We'll give you more than they're offering, and it kind of stifles that. But that's looking on the negative side. A quick point about Jonathan Gonzalez from Monterrey, because obviously 18 years old. I wrote a story about how he was just an outlier in the final. 7 years younger than anybody else who started the first leg. The amount of ground he covers on average per game is incredible. It's actually in the top 10. Of the Premier League. He would be in the top 10 players who cover most ground in the Premier League on the basis of what he's done this season, which is phenomenal, because the Mexican League isn't about, or isn't historically about, charging up and down like the Premier League is. But yeah, Gonzalez will have to wait on the national team thing. I mean, I think he's still leaning towards the United States, but from being there in Monterrey, keep your ear to the ground, and I wouldn't say it's completely 100% a done deal. Now, that's not saying he's going to play for Mexico or anything like that, but I mean, there might be a little chink of light at the end of the tunnel there, potentially. The other thing is, Juan Carlos Osorio spoke spoke to ESPN about Gonzalez, and someone's asking over here, about what he said. But to be honest, Osorio wasn't that complimentary. He said basically Gonzalez is very, very good technically. He said that if he was playing for Mexico in Osorio's system, he wouldn't be the holding midfielder. So if you got a 4-3-3,
Of course,
one holding midfielder, and then you got Herrera and Guardado, and he's saying he'd play in one of those roles, more attacking midfield roles, which is fair enough. But he also said, but if he comes and plays, then he's going to have to battle against the competition. And Osorio seems to suggest that there is a lot of competition, which is right, So basically, Gonzalez would be fighting against Jonathan Dos Santos, for example, potentially against Marco Fabian in one of those roles. So I don't know. I thought Osorio could have said something more positive, to be honest. But we'll see. We'll see. I think January is going to be massive in terms of the future of Jonathan Gonzalez and the national team, because I think both teams are going to play games then. It's not going to officially cap-tie them, but he's going to make his decision then. And I think that in terms of the United States, I think the United States are going to call him, because why at this point?
Yeah, there's no reason why. Yeah,
I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure why he wasn't called up before.
Especially
I don't think he's too sure, to be honest.
Especially the history of the United States has had with calling players like that.
He was also in the running for. I'm not sure if he won it, but I think he was in the running for the U.S. Youth Player of the Year or something like that. So he is getting recognized to an extent. But I think in the recent friendlies, I think also someone brought up the fact that he wasn't called up just because he was focused on the Liga. He was focused on Monterrey and whatnot, and focusing on the season. And I think it was at the very end. I think it was the last friendly was right before the Clásico Regio, not the final, but the regular season match. But you do make a point that it is confusing. Yeah,
I did hear that, but I also I don't know. I mean, I'm not just from what I've heard. I'm not convinced by it though.
Yeah,
I'll just put it that way.
Jonathan Gonzalo gets taken to the World Cup by Osorio and gives us a goal in the round of 16 versus Belgium.
Hey, I'll tell you what though, for people like us who are covering this in covering Mexican football in English, the Mexican national team. I mean, having someone like that choose Mexico at this stage would be, I think it'd be pretty big, no?
Oh man, that'd be awesome, man. I mean, if on a personal note, it would just be cool to see a Mexican American kid from California on the Mexican. That's cool to see. I think that'd be awesome.
A Mexican American kid from California, isn't that Conejito Brizuela?
Yeah, but I don't know.
What? He's not American for you anymore?
He is, man. But he left when he was really young.
Wait, isn't there another?
Yeah, man. He left when he was really young.
So he's still a baby.
Who else is from California? What's his face? I was born in the U.S. too.
Miguel Ponce was.
Miguel Ponce.
And
they're not American enough for you. I see how it is.
Maybe not good enough.
I see how it is. All right, guys. Lots of talk on the chat. Thank you to Golazo de Gringo. Which, you know what? I'm glad you're on, Mr. Golazo de Gringo. You're a very first Patreon. You're a first favorite Patreon, and I wanted to congratulate you because right away you said, "Hey, I want to listen to," which brings us, guys, really quick. Our Patreon is going full force. We have lots and lots of content there. Our Countdown to Russia podcast. Quick preview, Cesar and Tom, of this week's podcast. What will you guys be talking about? LT doesn't play for another month, but there's always topics. And really quick, I'm getting news flashes here on my phone. Apparently, Andres Guardado is injured, just got injured, and we'll try to see the developing story. Might be missing about a month. See if anybody we can confirm that. But what's the topic for this week, Tom and Cesar?
We're actually still brainstorming it right now. We haven't. I know we probably should have prepared something, but we haven't decided on anything just yet for this week's podcast. But obviously, got to keep an eye on it because it's all things focusing on El Tri. We sometimes, obviously today, we don't have that much time to talk about the national team. But with the Countdown Russia podcast, it's all Mexican national team talk. So keep an eye out for all of our Patreon users, and then like Lisa said, it's patreon.com/the Mexican Soccer Show. To not only listen to this week's episode, but just all the previous ones that we've had as well.
Yes. Let's switch it over to kind of national team Mexicans abroad. Champions League round of 16. Yes, we'll continue with Mexicans playing in the Champions League, which is always really good. It's the best football player around the world. better than any league. I feel that the Champions League and hopefully having some players play. Porto versus Liverpool. When I kind of saw this match, obviously the Porto kind of like an Europa match. I don't know, but sorry. I think Jason. I think you're a Liverpool fan, right?
Dude, he's wearing a Liverpool jersey, man.
Oh, my bad. I did not. I just saw a red jersey. I don't know, Jason. Is he really wearing one? Yes, he is. Oh, okay. All right. It was. I was kind of like laughing. I'm like, oh, that's even though Porto's there. But what can we expect? We need these players to play in the best leagues and the best tournaments. And at least we're seeing them in this stage. But talk Champions League. I'm excited about. I know about the Mexicans, but I'm really excited about the other matches. But we'll stick to this. Roma versus Shakhtar Donetsk. Hector Moreno there. But what do you guys see? Something positive on this? Hopefully getting some minutes, and who probably isn't.
I saw on the last Countdown to Rush podcast, you guys went over pretty in depth of some of the Europeos and their lack of minutes, and some of the moves you want to see them, and some of the troubling things. And a lot of those Porto players were obviously in that conversation, that they aren't really all in ideal position, and whether it has to do with them underperforming and just the kind of the logjam of talent in some of those positions at Porto. So it'll be interesting to see who gets the minutes. I think what we're seeing so far is that Hector Herrera has certainly put a stamp on himself of recently getting back into that form and being someone that's very important to the team. So he's the one player, you're really excited for, just with Porto in general. And then obviously any of these Champions League games are really big for him. So it'll be exciting to watch him. And hopefully we get to see some of those other Porto players in there as well, hopefully.
Yeah.
They all played.
I've given up me on Miguel Layún and Diego Reyes. I've just given up because I just don't think it's going to happen from there now. I think that's why, on the countdown to Russia, we said those two have to move. But I think Herrera is in a decent place. I think that Porto's actually playing pretty well. Obviously first place on goal difference in the Portuguese league, and I think in England it was kind of the draw against Porto was seen as quite an easy one for Liverpool. But I think Porto can cause Liverpool some problems, to be honest. And yeah, I think Herrera is obviously once again quite an important part of that team, which is great to see. The player that I'd like to see step up for Porto is Tecatito.
Yeah,
I'd love to see him, start 2018 and just explode, really, and in this Liverpool game really make an impact. Because you look at a team like Liverpool with Salah, Firmino, and those kind of players, and you think, is there any reason Tecatito can't be at that level?
Yeah.
And I think he's got it within him. But you have to do it. You have to do it regularly, and you have to do it especially in the big games. So it's a big next few months for Tecatito, I'd say, in the lead up to the World Cup, because I think Mexico really, really need him. I think he's a player that can make a difference, make something happen, can create something from nothing. And I don't think Mexico have too many players like that. So fingers crossed, really, for Tecatito.
And obviously, Tecatito's been having a hard time recently with his personal life too, which is obviously something we got to keep in mind. But I do really hope that he takes advantage of this opportunity
over the weekend, right?
Oh,
I think I think I saw that he was actually playing. Herrera is having some minutes. Doing well. With the team that we saw. What about Moreno, guys? When we saw this move, what he was doing before in his other team, commanding, playing, and now going over to Roma, everyone was excited about it. I think there was interviews there. Why wouldn't he have the minutes, be playing? What's going on? And will we see him on the field?
There's a big difference between PSV and Roma. And I think that, Roma has been doing quite well so far. They're doing quite well in the Champions League. And I think that perhaps this idea that's just why really mix things up right now? Why not keep Moreno as that backup when needed? And why really need to change things when, things are working quite well for Roma? So I think
but they're not thinking about us.
Yeah. I do have faith.
They're not owned by Americans.
Yep.
Now we're starting to understand.
I do have faith though that Moreno will eventually sneak into the starting 11. That's more so. That's not based off talent. That's just me having faith in the guy, like knowing that he is a good player and a hard worker. But it's just I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with the guy. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't featured that much, but.
Does anybody remember contract details or anything like that? Is this for a year, 2 years? I mean, if you don't play for a year, I think you should leave. He's almost getting to the end of his career. I mean, he should be playing in anywhere, and Roma could be a great team in great league for defenders. We're saying it, but if he's not getting any games, especially in 2018, I mean, can we see our defender, who was supposed to be a Rafa Marquez, who was supposed to command the team after Guardado, I would say, not having any minutes until the World Cup? I mean,
it's definitely troubling.
It's a bad situation.
It's a really bad situation. Like we were saying on Countdown to Russia, I mean, you could probably make the argument if you wanted to. I'm not saying that 100% would buy it, but I don't think it's ridiculous to suggest Moreno's actually Mexico's most important player. Yeah. And I say that because in terms of who you replace him with, especially with Osorio wanting a left-sided centre-back, the drop in quality is significant, probably not strong enough word. Yeah. Because you get down to Oswaldo Alanis. You know, you get and it's just there's a big difference between those players. And I think that if Moreno's not playing, it's not good. It's not good. I mean, you could argue if Chicharito's out, then possibly you've got Jimenez. You could argue if Lozano's out, then you've got Tecatito can come in. You've got Vela. You've got a number of wingers. Whereas if Moreno's out, who have you got?
Right.
Somewhat of a tangent, but I wish someone would create a list of all the players that were named as the next Rafa Marquez. We should have like a power ranking list of all the players who have been supposed to be the next.
There hasn't really been that many.
People have said like Montes.
No, you have said Montes. No one has said except for you.
Diego Reyes, Moreno, Hiram Mier.
No one has said Reyes. I don't care.
Yeah,
no.
People. I think it'd be I think at least like 5 players.
No. No. No.
There's a list out there.
Any defenders going into Europe that was not Marcel Rodriguez, we would say they're in that commanding fashion. But we'll see.
Yeah, but Roma, for example, they've conceded 10 goals in 15 games. It's the best defensive record in the league. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I mean, Di Francesco, why is he going to change his backline if they're just not conceding and they're challenging for the Serie A title?
It's the same thing with Porto. Porto's doing extremely well defensively, so why put Reyes in there? I know Reyes ended up getting to start over the weekend, but why really mix anything up defensively if you're doing very well in the back line?
Just switch Reyes and Moreno. I'll be down. Who cares if Reyes?
No, but I mean, seriously, it is an issue. This, I mean, it is a big issue, and let's hope we see some movement over the transfer window. Like I said, Layun and Reyes for me, they have to be getting out of there, because it's just so important for the Mexican national team next summer. And Chicharito's situation over there at West Ham, I think he's going to play, but it's not ideal with David Moyes, and not just because of the personal relationship, but they don't really. Do they play the type of football like David Moyes' teams that Chicharito thrive on? And I just don't think I don't think they do, to be honest. And I think that could be problematic.
Well, or that defense. I mean, Layun, Reyes, and Moreno not getting any minutes before the World Cup. Think about that. All right, let's switch over to the Club World Cup. Everybody was sweating once again. I was about to tweet. Same story with Mexican clubs in the Club World Cup, when all of a sudden Pachuca finds a way into the net and beats
Wydad Casablanca. Yeah.
And I guess it's a positive, obviously, with what we're going, but now going against Gremio. So I think, Jason, I knew you were up in the morning. Cesar, I'm not quite sure. Were you up? Yeah,
I was up, unfortunately. I got like 2 hours of sleep. It was awful.
It was brutal. It was just brutal to watch. It was not entertaining match in any way.
You just kept drinking through it, Cesar.
No, you know what?
Actually, 12th minute.
I was at a fundraiser for like EPL supporters group in San Diego, and like I was having drinks up until about like midnight, and then it was a big mistake. Anywho, I watched the game. I wrote an article about it. So whatever.
EPL supporters group.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, maybe just talk about the game. I mean, it was awful, man. I mean, for Pachuca, they were very, very boring in the attack. They were predictable. I mean, they had a lot of possession, but when you looked at the opposition, they should have been so much better. They really should have been so much better. And it's incredible how long it took them to finally score the goal. I mean, it had to go into extra time. Once again, Victor Guzman was a goal scorer, but it was, I mean, yeah, it was enough to get them to the semifinal round. But when you look at who they're going to be taking on, Gremio, in the semifinal round, they're going to need to make some serious improvements if they want to go for the final.
Jason's Bofo bet 33-1 on Pachuca to win the Club World Cup is going to pay off, right, Jason?
I think so. You know, why not? They could take down Gremio, and you know who are Real Madrid anyway, really. So
they got problems. They're losing. It's not the
Real
same.
Madrid.
Yeah,
we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident. It's just 2 matches, right? So that's all I need. 2 wins.
I want to see that KSK Honda. Really,
just 180 minutes away from some big money, Jason.
That's right.
By the way, what are you on that? How are you doing on the Bofo?
Oh, I did very well. Well, the Pachuca win over Casablanca got me about 700 Bofos. So that's good stuff.
So where are you at right now?
We're at about 2,000. Started at 1,000. So
okay, there we go, guys.
not bad at all. Double my Bofos.
Forget Bitcoin.
That's right.
Everyone's talking about Bitcoin, but you should be going with the Bofo coin.
Get into the Buffalo coins.
Get into the Bofo coins. All right, guys. Well, Jason, how are we doing on our guest is going to jump on?
He is on his way.
He is on his way. All right. Well, we'll be waiting for him.
Yeah, big game though against in the morning. Probably over by the time a lot of people see this, but against Gremio, I mean that's a real test.
What?
You know,
4 a.m.
9 a.m. 9 a.m. Pacific time. So.
Okay. Yeah. I mean the only won the Libertadores like I think a couple of weeks ago, so they're very much in kind of form and in this kind of mode of, you know, we know what the South American teams are like. They win the Libertadores and then they come and take the Club World Cup very, very seriously. Mm-hmm. So a huge test for Pachuca. I mean, obviously we always say the same thing every year, but it'd be great to see one of these Mexican teams, you know, do something and achieve something against a club like Gremio, especially Pachuca, I think, because it is a club that is run very, very well. That, you know, the ideas behind the philosophy of the club, the way they've got a university there, the quality of the installations, not the installations, is it? The facilities.
Instalaciones.
You know, it's very impressive. So let's hope that they can that Pachuca can do something and, you know, set up a game against Real Madrid, which, you know, clearly going to lose. Sorry, Jason, but you know, at least it'll bring some eyes onto the club.
That's right.
All right. Well, it looks like we have our special guest, Mr. Eduardo, who happens to have a Tigres bufanda up above him. Eduardo, welcome to the show of our Patreon winner to coming on. And how's it going, brother? Welcome.
Yo, man. Yo, guys. How's it going? First off, thank you for having me here at the Mexican Soccer Show. I've been listening to you guys since 2014, so it's been a pleasure. You know, I appreciate the fact that you guys have provided a ton of, you know, material about, you know, La Selección, El Tri, you know, our national team in English. So it's awesome. You don't have to depend on Edición Deportes the whole time I listen to it. You know, criticando La Selección, Hugo Sánchez, Malinche esto, Malinche lo otro. So, you know, it's really cool.
Go. Glad to have you on. Tell us a little bit about you, Eduardo. Where are you residing?
I am a New Yorker living currently in Baltimore, Maryland.
All right. Good. Yep. I see that.
Dude, it's late over there, man. It's almost 11. I guess it's pretty late where Jason's at too.
Jason's like, yeah, it's the same.
That's right.
All right, Eduardo. So this is your chance. What question? I know you want to probably talk about El Tri, but what our producers tells us that you have owned how many El Tri shirts, jerseys since 1994? How many do you have?
I actually since 1986, so we have a total of 31 Mexico jerseys.
There you go. Do you have that one with the calendar, but the white on the white?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you right now.
Oh,
Dude,
whoa.
that is one. Dude, that is.
Oh, whoa.
there it is.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, hold on. Do you have the red one that came out? I think the year after.
Which one?
It
Which
was the
year?
calendar red one. It was around 99, I think, or 98. It was the same calendar. It came out in green. It came out in white, but there was a special edition red one.
No, I don't have that one. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to find that one. I think it's like green with red details.
Yeah, green with red
I think
detail.
that's-
I think they played
Yeah.
it in some other.
Nice.
I got
There
the
you
99
go.
Confederations. This was hard to get. This was
There
hard
it
to
is.
get.
That's
There
pretty
it
good.
is. Well, good, Eduardo. We got a few minutes in there. Tell us a little bit about, talk about El Tri. How do you see them right now? Will you hear from us? I mean, everyone always keeps saying that we're Osorio lovers and we never, go hard on them. But let's hear from a fan. You've obviously have seen and have lived in Mexico, but since 1986, as you saw. But tell us, are you happy with the current standing? How do you see him in the World Cup, man?
Let me put it to you this way. Osorio is a new manager, he's not Mexican, he has the UEFA license, has studied the English game well. We heard his story about him being an immigrant and, living in the United States as a construction worker, living the life of, of everyday Latino immigrant. So I think we should give him a chance only because, I feel like watching Mexico since 94, USA to today, well, before Osorio, we've seen a lot of Mexican managers playing the Mexican game. Sure, they understand the Mexican player and the Mexican way of playing football, but the problem is that maybe, if we fail to make it past the round of 16 for the last 6 or 7 cycles, maybe we need that fresh support. Of course, Sven-Goran Eriksson was a terrible mistake.
That's true.
Also, I feel like he understands, our style of play. He appreciates, he loves the culture. He has a ton of respect for us, the fan base and Mexican football. So I think we need to be a little bit more patient with him. This is still a fresh new approach. I mean, think about it. How many times have we had a 4-year cycle in the World Cup? Hardly ever. Maybe it's unheard of to even talk about a 4-year extension.
Yeah.
I think
what's interesting, Eduardo, when you say that, something that came to mind then was, you said the Mexican coach knows the Mexican player. I'm not sure if that's changing now, and I say that because I think Mexico have got a core group of players who perhaps wouldn't relate as much to certainly certain Mexican managers, and I say that because you look at someone like Chicharito, who's played under Ancelotti, under Ferguson, or Moreno, who's played under Pochettino, who's played under Van Gaal, and I think these Mexican players are actually almost more developed, in terms of their education of the game than a lot of the Mexican managers right now. And I think that's why they like Osorio, to be honest, because I think they see similarities with, in Osorio than they've experienced with their coaches over there in Europe. And I don't think they necessarily get that with very many domestic coaches in Mexico, because basically right now there's no Mexican coaches over there in Europe.
I think the whole non-Mexican, or it comes down from the stat that, no club, no country has won with a foreign coach, which I think people take that way too hard because, Bora Vituinovich in 1986, look where he got us. And Osorio, for whatever, Tuca isn't Mexican by all means, in birth and how that. So I like that you say that, giving him at least some time. Eduardo, what about your club? I see Tigres up there. I think Real Madrid over there to the left. And what do we got? And Arsenal. There you go, Jason.
What I want to know from Eduardo is, it's a big question, but after you've seen the World Cup draw, where do you think Mexico is going to finish next World Cup?
I think we're gonna. That's a tough one. I want to say first place. It's like come on, we can do it. But a couple of things have to take place. Think about it. Teams like Germany, Brazil, Argentina always struggle in the group stage, but do they really care about making it? They have the talent to play a C team and still blow away the competition in the groups. They can slack off. They know they're going to crush whoever's in the round 16, or at least be confident enough. So maybe we can take advantage of the fact that, Germany might, think that we're the easy team and we played them in a.
It's Cup. Like, does Germany say, "Hey, we better get first, or we're going to get Brazilian"?
Honestly,
Probably not too worried.
You're actually been the one that said it. You know, if there's a team to face in the round of 16, it's Brazil. And the reason why is that we consistently have shown that we can match Brazil, if not beat them. And I think the statistic is in the official competition that Brazil has not beaten us in like, what 15 years or something so. And I'm mentioning 2005, 2000, I believe, Copa America in 2007 with Nery Castillo's awesome goal.
Yeah, that actually makes sense.
About the 2012 Olympics. So I think we can do it. I think Sweden might rob a point from Germany. Honestly, I mean, if they were able to stifle Italy.
Yeah,
man, I hope so, man. I hope so.
Yeah. That'd be nice.
All right, last question before we have to go. Eduardo, favorite player in El Tri?
Favorite player in El Tri? You know what? I want to say Chicharito Hernandez for a couple of reasons, and I know that's the easy one, but I have a particular a couple of reasons why. You know, every decade, like in the late 80s, early 90s, we had Hugo Sanchez, right? And then we had Rafa Marquez in Barcelona. And then the new decade came, and then we had Chicharito Hernandez. And the reason why I like him, because he's, I would say, a very different kind of player that we've seen, you know, for the Mexican national team, or just a person. Yeah, Cuauhtémoc Blanco was larger than life. We have Chicharito, you know, a calm, humble, you know, nice person who's just, you know, one with the fans. He gives his heart out. And I think he set an example on how a Mexican player should be professionally. I mean, the players in Real Madrid or the coach in Real Madrid has talked very highly of him and, you know, the dedication he put, even though he was there for 1 year. In Manchester United, people were sad to see him go when he got sold by Louis van Gaal. So I think he, you know, put a benchmark of what the Mexican player can do, you know, jump ahead, you know, play in Europe, don't give up no matter what, you know, don't take the easy route, don't take the money. Look, he could have gone to LA United, what is it, LAFC?
Yeah. That's the 13 that's coming.
LA United
could have gone there
2026
Rafa Marquez.
I don't think Chicharito's gonna make it to MLS.
No.
You were good. You were perfect on the consensus of Mexican Soccer Show until you said that, because I think everyone expects it. But Eduardo, thank you so much for listening to us since 2014. Thank you so much for becoming a Patreon and also your support, man. We really do appreciate it. We do this for you guys. So with all due respect, come on. Continue to send us your questions and challenges and do everything you can. But we're gonna give you the last 25-30 seconds to say whatever you want to say. Close us off. You are the host, and thanks again for watching, brother.
No pressure.
So
there you go. This is your show.
Thank you guys again for providing this material. You guys are awesome. Tom, Cesar, Naive, you know, if you're listening, Weasel, Jason, Amy, you guys are awesome. Thank you. Keep it going. You know, keep it going strong. Pancho Villa's Army, if you guys are not a member of it, join it. Awesome group. Weasel, you were with us at the Estadio Azteca, so you know, there you go. There you go. So you guys are awesome. Thank you for having me part of this, and I can't wait to hear more of the Russia podcast.
Thanks, Eduardo, man. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
All right, thank you, Eduardo. Thanks to everybody watching, and we'll continue to bring you updates and bringing people on the show. Become a Patreon. Gracias por todo, and we'll see you next Monday on another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. Hasta la próxima.